I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you mark as your progress and success in this movement?
Well, I think because it's in the national dialogue and the international dialogue. I think what Joe was saying earlier about how one defines occupation, the occupation has grown tremendously. Maybe there's not a physical occupation right now in the size right here in this park, but there are occupations springing up physically all over the city. And it's very much about what you're standing in, and I don't know if you've discussed this in your class, but what you're standing in is one aspect of the Greek agora. Have you talked about the agora? The central place in Athens, which was where democracy was practiced, which was a public space where people performed, where they had festivals, where they had rituals. It was a marketplace. It was a place for dialogue. So it's the commons. And a lot of what this is, and like what's going on over there in terms of the bed, because they're going to try to bring the bed into this park as a First Amendment right of expression, as a theatrical piece. Lady Liberty is kind of an iconographic figure for inspiration, but having her here is also a First Amendment right. So a lot of what's happening in this park, in Washington Square Park, next Sunday in Tompkins Square Park, is gatherings in the commons, people's First Amendment right in this country, in any democracy, to gather, to speak, to trade ideas, to perform for each other. And when the people were evicted from here, Mayor Bloomberg himself said, okay, rather than occupy with tents, I challenge you to occupy with the strength of your arguments, with your ideas. And that's what this is doing.
What do you hope for future success?
I hope for that. What I hope for future society?
For success.
For success?
Yeah.
I hope that the occupation, that everyone becomes occupied, because the occupation is about thinking about how one lives in the world, how one lives as a citizen, how one's civic duty to a society, the social contract. What we're talking about in this country a lot is people, citizens as consumers, not about citizens, how they react, how you react within a society, especially within something that calls itself a democracy. I work in the theater. What the theaters are very worried about are ticket buyers. They're not so worried sometimes about audience. The difference between a ticket buyer and an audience, like you're an audience right now. You didn't buy a ticket to a performance, and this is performative democracy too. It's a performance of democracy. So I would hope that everyone becomes occupied in some way and occupies.
How do you hope to get to that goal?
By continued conversations, by talking to people like you, by having people think about something, by having that moment of recognition, that moment, that road to Damascus moment, if you want to, refer to the Bible, and saying, oh, wow, I realized something about the world, about my country, about myself and society. So I think everyone can have that. And when you have that moment, that's the first step of an occupation of your mind and your occupation of your society.
This is kind of a big question. Why do you think people are afraid of the movement?
They're afraid they're going to lose something. They're afraid they're going to lose what they've been told by a lot of forces that they should have in order to be valuable, in order to have status. What the society does, and it's a big fuel for a kind of irresponsible capitalism. I'm not anti-capitalism. I think a responsible capitalism can be a very useful tool. It made class more fluid than class ever was. You could come and be a poor person, you could work hard or whatever, you could rise, you could do better for your family than your grandfather's family had. However, that is changing in this country. It's not so fluid anymore because a small percentage, we're going really back to an oligarchical system. And the whole idea is that, people should be able to be fluid. And rephrase your question again. What did you ask me?
Why do you think people are so afraid of it?
Why are they so afraid? Because they think they're going to lose something. So the fact is, you're not going to lose anything that's really valuable. I think the whole concept of what gives value to a person. You're not valuable because you own a certain pair of shoes. You're not valuable because you live in a certain kind of house. You're valuable because you are a human being with your own dreams and expression and your freedom to self-express. So it's the idea of kind of like there's a button that people push, that they're wired to say, I have to have this, I have to do this. I've been told that unless I do this, I'm not valuable. So what the fear is that you're going to take away my connection to value. And that's not what it is at all. It's about redefining people's connection to value, to being able to own your own definitions of value. But that's why they're afraid, I think.
Well said. Yeah.
What have you personally achieved since September?
I think I've become a better person. I really do. I think I've been moved by the people in this movement. I work in the theater, in the arts, and people in the theater, I have to say, are generally pretty decent people. But the people in this movement are so generous, are so committed, are so courageous, are so willing to sacrifice and put themselves on the line for a bigger idea. And I haven't seen that for 30 years. I'm a little older, so I was a kid during the 60s. I grew up in Washington, D.C. It shaped me, and I wanted it, and I haven't seen it for a long time. And I see it now, and I feel it fuels me. It has regrounded me in my own sense of what is important in the world, to be a citizen of the world. And so I think I've totally become a better person.
Do you think the arts movement, in particular with all the puppets, have had a huge impact and influence on the movement? Do you think it brings it all together?
Depends what huge, is like. I think it's had an impact that's growing. You have to remember, it's not even 6 months old. It's not at walking, it's like barely, it's an infant. So huge is like, I think it has a significant impact. We just recently did this puppet action on the subways, where we bring along to have like the Imagine a Better World, another world is possible, where we sort of have components of cities. Somebody else should talk about this actually. But people, usually on the subways are like, ugh. And we come in and people smile and they're willing to listen. It's really great. And I actually think somebody else should talk about this because I've been yabbering.
I think we've got, what you need to do is to go around and get the names and spelling of this.
I got a piece real quick.
That's fabulous. Fabulous.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's great.
Thanks.
So I'm going to take
I'm
back.
going to give you this too, just so that you know a little bit about some of the other things that are happening.
That's done.
Yeah.
Something Square Park. Excellent.
Yeah, and starting in March.
Yeah, great.
Starting in March, there's going to be activities here at lunchtime.
And if any of your students want to puppetry, the hands are pretty easy.
Yeah, on the march. Yeah.
They're more than welcome to too, if that's something.
All right, I'll take these back.
Okay.
I'm going to unclip it.